How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good today. Today's a good day.
Good. I guess we'll kind of jump right into things and ask how long you were in active addiction.
Active addiction, I would say 2.5 years. But part of the insight I've been understanding here is I've certainly had behaviors that led up to addiction for, I would say most of my life. Yeah. But as far as actively using drugs, 2.5 years.
Okay. And what's your drug of choice?
Fentanyl.
Okay. And how did that start?
That started, so I worked as a registered nurse, and I was struggling. I don't like the word struggle, but depression and anxiety have been unwelcome bedfellows since my childhood. Mm-hmm. And so that has waxed and waned a little bit, and I've tried different therapies, but not comprehensive, not a lot of great follow through. And then life happened. You get married and you have kids and you have a job, and pretty soon it's easy for your daily calendar to just get consumed. So I was not feeling well. I was not healthy mentally at all, not healthy emotionally, not feeling great at all. And there was some available medication that we are supposed to waste after it's being used. Mm-hmm. And I didn't actually waste it. Mm-hmm. I thought, I think I'm going to try this and see if maybe I'll be able to finally get some rest. I hadn't been having good quality sleeps for a long time. Mm-hmm. It sounds very silly to say those words now, but at the time, I used the drug. I was very responsible, though. I waited until my husband was in bed and my children were in bed, and I knew I wouldn't be driving for 24 hours, and I made sure everything was very sterile, and I was used very good technique.
Very calculated.
Very calculated, because there's one thing to break the rules like this, but I should at least be sensible.
Yeah.
Also very dysfunctional way of thinking. And what I've told people...
CBT is working.
Yeah, CBT is working. CBT is definitely working. But what I've told people here is I used it and I liked it.
Yeah.
I immediately liked it. I can talk about how it felt. I can talk about what I liked, because I've been able to figure out a way to describe it, mm-hmm. if that's helpful.
Please do.
I love being outside, and in the wintertime we like to ski or snowshoe or just be outside. So coming in from the cold and being so cold, so chilled that you just can't warm up no matter what you do. And then you climb into bed and it's a warm bed, because maybe there's somebody you can climb in next to, or maybe the dogs have been sleeping in your spot and warmed up the sheet. But it was that type of a feeling, is profoundly uncomfortable, and then all of a sudden absolutely comfortable. And then I went to bed and I had a great sleep. And how that evolved was, whenever I had opportunity, I took the drug. Mm-hmm. And over time, over 2 years, I started to realize that I think I need more and more and more. And over time, I was taking more and more and more and more, up to 15 to 20 times that initial dosage, mm-hmm. is what I was taking. Yeah.
That's pretty net. That's pretty par for the course sort of thing. I know with me, I was kind of the same way. I started with little doses, and by the end of it, I was,
And it took no time at all. It took no time at all to suddenly have that pattern of behavior set up. And to realize, it was after a very short time, I realized, the drug isn't really working the way it did that very first time. Uh-huh. And so I kept thinking, well, if I use a little bit more, maybe if I use a little bit differently. And I realized that it didn't take long before all I was treating was withdrawal. I wasn't treating my underlying symptoms at all, but the discomfort of going without. Yes. Yeah. I did not have the insight to reach out and ask for help.
Okay.
By that point, which I would say was June of this year, I felt very much like I was not using to treat anything. I was now just simply using because I liked it. That's what I told myself. I have everything all under control. And I worked at what I like to define is the best job I've ever had in my entire career. And they are like family. And so 2 of the family members said, are you okay? And I wasn't okay, but I told them that I was, because now I'm afraid.
Yes.
So I lied. And I said that, oh, yes, absolutely, I'm fine. And then there was some talk about the counts on the narcotic sheets that weren't reconciling, and some missing medication, and wastages that weren't appropriately witnessed. And so again, being so afraid, I lied. And I said, well, my ego got the best of me, and I said, well, do you want my resignation then? Would you like me to resign? And they said yes. So on the spot, I resigned. It was a very impulsive decision, and one that I regret, certainly. Resigned, and they were obligated, given the suspicions that they had and given the evidence they had, they were obligated to report me to our college. So they did report me, and an investigation was being undertaken. And honestly, at that point, I thought, I convinced myself, I lied so convincingly that I thought, absolutely not, absolutely not. I am not guilty. Again, absurd, looking back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
amazing what we can convince ourselves
so
of.
guilty. I don't have to watch CSI to appreciate my
Yes.
guilt. But fearful and embarrassed, ashamed, guilty. How could I'm a mother of 2, a great husband, a business owner in the community. We're fine, upstanding community members.
Yes.
I'm a nurse, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
How could I possibly have crossed that line? But I did. So my approach was certainly going to be denial, absolute denial throughout the entire investigation. I didn't have the opportunity to deny it, because about 2 weeks later, my phone rang, and it was a labor relations officer from our nursing union. And he said, I had already been in touch with him about this first investigation, and he said that there is a secondary investigation related to your work at the hospital. And that's when I still thought, my mind was thinking so quickly, I thought, how can I talk my way out of this? How can I talk my way out of this? And he said, I need you to know that if you are dishonest at any point, I cannot help you. I cannot protect you. I cannot advocate for you. So I need you to be 100% honest. Is there something that you need to tell me? And I started to cry, and I said yes. And so that was my moment, but I did not come to that realization by myself. I needed that prompting. I tell people when I tell my story that I got caught, and that if I hadn't been caught, there is a very big chance that I would still be using. I would still be in active addiction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a powerful story. You know, I'm sure there's lots of others. You're not alone, I'm sure, you know, in that situation. Yeah, and so you're in CBT right now, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right.
And are you in week 8 right now?
No, I'm not. I'm in week 6. Okay. So I completed 4 weeks of the rehab programming and those initial stages of recovery. Great. So I completed that 4 weeks. And then my husband and I had a conversation that said, you know what, if these anxiety and depression pieces contributed to the choices that I made, it's probably time to really sink your teeth into those and chew them up well, and finally understand how you need to get more help. Because I don't have a relapse in me. I don't have another recovery in me. This is some people just buy cars for their midlife crisis. I became a drug addict. Seems a little strange.
Wow.
But yes, so we decided that it would be best to stay, as hard as it is to be away from home, but to stay for that extra 4 weeks of CBT. Good. So I'm just finishing. I'll be finished week 2 tomorrow.
And how are things going?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. It's a very straightforward, linear, logical way to approach something that is very nebulous and hard to understand. So it is a very concrete way for me to wrap my head around concepts by incrementally giving me information and then asking me a few questions, and then helping me to look at the results of those questions to decide what's really going on.
Yeah.
And it's something that I can do with self-directed learning, which I enjoy self-directed learning,
Yes.
but with the support of a counselor daily
Of course.
with any questions and others that are in the group.
Yeah.
So I think on some level I may have known about this technique before, but didn't ever connect the dots that would be something that I could benefit from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So in this first, few weeks or 2 weeks of cognitive behavioral therapy, I know for me, like the light started coming on, and I could see things. Has there been any moments for you in this last 2 weeks of that, or throughout the program, even in the 6 weeks? Could you talk about?
Sure. There's been a lot of new insight coming along the way that I think is specifically engineered into how the program is developed and delivered. So that foundation is laid, the information it's reliable, it's valid, the processes are, tried and true, and it's tricky to apply this set of principles to this set of behaviors. But the way that it's done here allows every person to make sense out of that information. So for me, those first 4 weeks, the first 2 days of detox were very difficult. But immediately upon starting programming, I realized that this was a place where I needed to listen and learn and understand and relate with others. I decided early on that addiction is the great equalizer. Yes. It doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care what you do for a living, how many children you have or don't have, or what you did in your active addiction. It just doesn't care. Mm-hmm. And what I realized coming here is the people here don't care either.
Yes.
They don't care what you did before then. It's an analogy's been drawn that if we were all aboard the Titanic and we managed to survive and we were clinging together in a lifeboat, there would be a connection of a need to survive that we would have, because we needed to be together. Together we could deal with this, individually we can't. And that analogy has rung true for me, certainly, that I was foolish to think that addiction, even if I had the insight to realize I was an addict, I was foolish to think that I could simply just give it up. Mm-hmm. And not talk about any of the other things that go along with that.
Yeah.
And I learned that here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Powerful words, powerful thoughts.
This is a powerful place.
Yeah. I really appreciate, you sharing. Would you have any advice for that person in, the medical industry, or in healthcare, who's suffering right now? Would you have any advice for them?
I think the most important piece of advice that I've been given and that has been shared consistently through programming is, if you think you have a problem, if you are even compelled a little bit to reach out and get help, please do that. If all you can muster is the energy to dial the telephone number, then dial the telephone number. If you need to send an email because you don't feel comfortable talking to somebody, reach out, because those initial stages, in my experience, were like standing in the middle of some place in the dark and having no idea which way I needed to go. Mm-hmm. And that was frightening. Yeah. And it was terrible to feel like I couldn't get myself out of this. And that initial telephone call, that point of contact, was my husband who found this treatment facility. We'd been looking at a few different ones. I knew I needed an option that was away from home. And he found that, and what he said, what's most compelling about this place is the lifelong support that you get afterwards. Mm-hmm. And he liked the fact that there was always access to the information. So as far as the iPad portion and the volume of information, that was a key aspect for me. So I feel like I can always have what I need right at hand.
Yeah,
there.
That tool is always there for you, always available.
But you have to, the very second you're reaching out, you're no longer feeling guilty, you're no longer shameful. This is no longer about being embarrassed. This is about becoming an inspiration to yourself and to other people. It takes courage, it takes bravery, and you don't feel courageous and brave in the moment,
No.
but you just really need to make that call and get some help.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And that you'll be okay and it gets easier.
Yes.
But it
thank you.
sucks at first.
Yeah, it sucks at first.
It
does.
sucks at first
It really
for
does.
everybody, but
Yeah.
stick it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about for the family? How about for the family of the person suffering? Any words of advice for them?
Wow. I think that much advice would be available to me after they go home. I can tell you that my experience in making the phone call to my husband and letting him know that I was a drug addict was profoundly, I can't even think of a word. We have been together for 28 years, 22 of those years being married. He knows me warts and all and loves me anyway. Mm-hmm. And I know that when I made that telephone call, it broke his heart because he didn't know. Yeah. And so to families, I would say it's not up to you to know. It's not something that you missed. It's not something that you did wrong. It's not something you either did or didn't do mm-hmm. that led that person to addiction. And that's the most important thing, I think. And when we told our children, that was something that I told them, but I think I will need to tell them over and over again, is this is not your fault. It's not, deciding who's to blame is not a part of addiction recovery at all. It's a very matter-of-fact way of saying, this is what my reality is, and this is what I need to do to fix it. Mm-hmm. My other people's realities might be being a diabetic and needing medication, or having a bad heart and needing to have a comprehensive health plan in there. This is an illness, this is a disease, this is not a choice.
That's right.
I chose behaviors, yes. I did not choose to become a drug addict. No. Now that I know I am, I have insight to understanding my behaviors, and I will do better. I will do better. Yes. Yeah. And I think that's what families, if you're able to understand that addiction is a family disease, it impacts everybody. So that has to be a component of recovery as well. And you'll have to figure out in your own family what will make that work. Is it everybody going for counseling? Is it individual counseling? Is it participating in some of the great programs that are out there for families? I don't know what that looks like for people's families. At this point, I don't even know what it looks like for my family, because their recovery journey has been undertaken separate from mine.
Yes.
So we'll have to figure that out when I get home. Yeah. But I'm excited and nervous for that.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for sitting down with us. Your words have been incredibly inspirational, and I really look forward to being able to play this for other people and to have them hear this and hopefully get the hope and inspiration they need to get themselves help. So thank you for sitting with me, and
thank you for the opportunity. And I'm grateful for this facility and this program. This is a place where hard magic happens. Yeah. And it's I am profoundly grateful, and I think I'm not overstepping if I say that my family is grateful as well.
Yeah, super.